All right, guys, we are back with more True Scary Stories with Edie. I'm here with Nick.
Gara.
Nick, that's right. Gara. Good. Okay. I forget sometimes. And today I'm really excited about this episode. It is going to be about the black-eyed children.
What about them?
Well, about
I've never heard of these things.
how they be.
Tell me.
Okay. Well, the black-eyed kids are a folk phenomenon of people having... God, this is why I don't read. The black-eyed kids are a folk phenomenon of people having strange encounters with kids whose eyes are entirely black, who insist upon entering their vehicle or home and seem to ooze an overwhelming sense of fear and panic. And this has been directly plagiarized off of a site.
Yes, yeah, that was very funny.
Whatever. We were like, damn, Edie got smart. Edie's hella smart. So I've been here. This is like something that's just, well, I guess it's been around since like the 50s, 1950s. But this is becoming really popular lately. I've heard a couple of people talk about this, and I follow a lot of stuff like this. And this is like the first that I've been hearing about it like within the last year. I've scared Nick to death with stories. But without further ado, let's get going.
All right.
Nick, you got the first story? These all have
Here
long
it
ass
is.
titles.
Here, I'll shorten the title.
I read
Go ahead.
the titles.
Go ahead.
Like I have one job, to read the titles and to be hilarious.
Go ahead. You can
The
read it.
children tried to get a young man to walk into their home in 1950.
Walk them home in 19.
Oh, okay, I fucked up my one job. The children tried to get a young man to walk them home in 1950.
One of the earliest recorded sightings of black-eyed children was back in 1950. A 16-year-old boy named Harold was strolling up the street to his Virginia home when he noticed a boy leaning on a nearby fence. Harold was a bit startled. He paused and said hello, but received no response. He turned to leave. Then the mysterious boy finally spoke. "I want to go to your house. You're going to walk me up to your house." That was when Harold noticed the boy's eyes. They were pitch black. All his instincts screamed, "Run!" Yet he just stood there. Then, as if reading Harold's mind, the boy said, "Now don't you run away from me. You're going to walk me up to your house." That was enough to spring Harold into action. He booked it out of there. He claimed he heard the devilish child let out a scream of a bobcat, but he wasn't willing to turn around to be sure. The account goes on to reveal Harold's parents actually believed his tale, and his father went out with his gun looking for what they believed was the devil.
The actual devil.
The actual devil. Which you have a beef with.
Yeah.
People. The black-eyed child was gone, but Harold's mother still took him to a local priest to be sure her son would remain safe.
And then he was molested.
And then
Okay, I have a couple problems with this story.
Okay. This is
Like-
just an account.
I know, but you will take me to your house. You will take me to your house. And then he still stood there. Because they have, like, mind control. I can't make this go down. Because they have, like, mind control powers. Or, like, powers of persuasion. But it seems that nobody's ever actually persuaded by them.
Well, considering that this is one account that we've read to
Okay.
our fans.
And then, yeah, the dad getting the gun is really...
That's 1950.
Yeah,
This is before the internet.
yeah, because otherwise they would just go on the internet.
They go on the internet and be like, okay, was there sightings?
Was that Satan? If
there
so,
sightings?
should I grab my gun? What are they gonna
What's a 1950 dad to do?
I don't know. Get on the internet doesn't make any sense though.
Exactly. Get his gun and go
this part.
find him.
The devilish scream of a bobcat, but he wasn't willing to turn around. So it really might have been a bobcat.
That goes to show you that this is from the 1950s because his scream was that of a bobcat. Something that he kind of knows in nature. It wasn't like a T-Rex or a demon.
Okay, good.
I like you, Harold.
And this next story is called 1996.
Journalist Brian Bethel of Abilene, Texas, is credited with being the first person to post an online account of the Black-Eyed Children phenomenon. It all began back in 1996. Bethel was sitting in his car writing out a check he intended to drop off at the nearby internet provider's office. He was startled by the sound of knocking on his window and looked up to see two kids in hoodies. He couldn't figure out why, but a jolt of fear ran through him. They were just kids, but something was wrong with them, and he couldn't figure out what. He cracked his window just enough to talk with them. The oldest of the two boys asked for a ride to the mother's house. He claimed they were going to see a movie, forgot their money, and needed a ride so that they could make it back to the movie in time. The movie theater was close enough that Bethel could read the marquee, and he asked the boys what they were going to see. Mortal Kombat, was his reply.
Spooky.
Brian knew that movie had already started an hour ago. And he also knew that there was 15 minutes of preview before that, so these kids were missing the main point of the plot. Also, there was just something wrong with the pair. The way they spoke wasn't natural. They didn't sound as young as they looked. Just let us in and we'll be gone before you know it. We'll go to our mother's house. Everything the older boy said sent shivers down Bethel's spine. But then he saw it, the pitch black eyes lacking any real substance or soul. Bethel didn't even try to hide his horror. Come on, mister. We won't hurt you. You have to let us in. We don't have a gun. The more he spoke, the more Bethel was sure he had to get out of there. He threw his car in reverse, the boy still yelling to be let in. And Bethel sped off. He gave one quick glance behind him but saw nothing. The black-eyed boys simply vanished before he even made it out of the parking lot.
There's a guy named Bethel.
Yes, from Abilene, Texas.
That's how you know the story's real. No one could make up a detail like that.
Bethel was taking a check down to the internet provider.
The creepiest part of this story is how much that guy knew about Mortal Kombat.
Actually, I added that.
Oh, you did?
I could have gone on.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Well, no, it was Mortal Kombat was his reply. I just added that there was 15 minutes of previews. That's the
Why
only
did
thing
you
I
do
added.
that?
Because I thought you would catch it, but you weren't reading with me.
No, I was.
Everything he said. He didn't say anything more about Mortal Kombat.
Oh, you were a good actor.
Thank you.
Wow. And a liar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You added that?
I just added the 15-minute part.
Because, you know, Nick and I both used to work at movie theaters for a long time.
Yes.
Not the same movie theater, but there is 15 minutes of previews, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Before
and like movie trivia and things like that. So you're actually, that's why you're like really never late to movies. Because everyone thinks they start exactly.
Yeah, but some people are still late to movies.
Right, because there's kids out in the front trying to get into their car.
Some people come out late.
Okay, good. Bethel, killing it. Six months.
This tale was posted online by a friend of the victim. It was while on a trip to Arcata, California.
Arcata,
California.
We passed through there.
That this anonymous man stopped for a drink and ended up hitting it off with an attractive woman running the bar.
I thought it was going to be one of the kids.
After a bit of drinking and getting to know each other, she offered the traveler a place to stay for the night, and he drunkenly accepted.
Oh my God, a place to stay.
He left his car at the bar and headed back to her place. As they pulled into the front, that's when the unease crept in. He wasn't sure why, but her home creeped him out, and she was starting to creep him out as well.
A girl who wants to have sex with you from a bar is creeping you out?
He claimed she began to seem inhuman to him. This didn't stop him from going inside and having sex with her, of course.
Oh, well, duh. Pussy is pussy.
Even if it's demon pussy.
I don't like that word. I'm sad I said
Demon?
it.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know I did it for the joke. And
After the woman had fallen asleep, he got up to get water. During his trek to the kitchen, he realized her house was full of children. They weren't normal children, though. They were quiet and creepy and wandering the house aimlessly at 2 a.m. He had a horrible feeling about them even before he noticed their eyes. Completely black. All of them. There was no conversation, no attack. He was just faced with the black-eyed children and then sent off on his merry way. About a month after his strange experience, this healthy, athletic man was suddenly diagnosed with bladder cancer. He died 6 months later, believing it was those black-eyed children and their caretaker that killed him.
That's pretty creepy.
That is pretty creepy. That's
Bladder cancer. I've never even heard of that.
Bladder cancer?
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of cancer.
Is there nose cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Is there eyelash cancer?
Probably not, but, definitely face,
Is
eyes,
cancer
skin.
like an actual
It's a growth.
organism, or is it just mean something's deteriorating?
No, it's cells, it's abnormal cell growth in your body. We all have a form of cancer. Most of it's dormant.
Okay, so it isn't just like a word meaning, because you can say a person is cancer, so it's like, I thought maybe it was just a word meaning something is like killing you. It could be a million things.
No, it's your body. It's
Yeah,
an abnormal
duh.
growth.
But it's
It's your cells, mutated cells.
Okay, good. Good. That got far off track and depressing.
Yeah.
I'm sad this guy died.
Yeah.
But I also, this tale was posted online by a friend of the victim. It's like, well, that's not a very good friend. Why are you talking about this guy who went out for a one-night stand and got killed?
It was anonymous.
He was a good, bad friend, and that's the worst part of the story. And this one's called 2010.
An engineer working the night shift for a data center in Ohio, had a creepy exchange and posted his tale anonymously as Noetic. Lame. It was around 5 a.m. on July 31st, 2010. Noetic was taking a smoke break outside when he noticed two teenage boys.
That's definitely that guy's name, by the way.
Noe Tick.
That's definitely his name.
It's
That's
like,
not a fake
oh,
name.
did he think he was going to be poetic, but he's Noetic? All right.
I thought it was a word that meant something that you knew. But
No.
okay, go ahead.
He was taking a smoke break outside when he noticed two teenage boys standing motionlessly and staring at him from across the street. Immediately feeling unnerved, he snubbed out his smoke and went back inside. No more than 10 minutes later, the intercom buzzed. Noetic checked the monitors, and there they were. The two boys had made their way over to his building and were now staring into the surveillance camera like they could see him through it.
Oof.
Through the speaker, he asked what they wanted. They said nothing, but motioned for him to come outside. He hit the speaker button again and told them to go away. They didn't leave, but continued to stare into the camera as if they were watching Noetic as he worked. Noetic was fed up after about 10 minutes of this creep fest, so he went to the door to chase them off. Right before opening the door, he saw them through the one-way glass and was horrified to see their eyes were completely black. He knew he had to open the door and tell them to get out, and he decided to call the police if he had to. As if the boy read his mind, the moment the door opened, he said, "That will not be necessary, sir. We simply need to use your phone. Can you let us in?" Noetic was not about to fall for that nonsense. He pulled out his cell and threatened to call the police if they didn't leave. He made sure the door was locked and he went back to the monitor. Only one boy was still there staring at the camera. Then he realized the second boy positioned himself out back and was staring into the camera there. Noetic called the police. Both boys moved into a blind spot with no camera coverage. Noetic waited for them to reappear, but they simply vanished. The police arrived around 6 a.m. and both boys were gone.
Wow, that's creepy.
It's a creepy one.
I don't like that they moved into the blind spot. How did they know where that was?
Because they know.
Noetic! Wow. That one was, I think, the creepiest one. And this next creepy story is called 2012.
A gas station attendant in northeast Louisiana had a terrifying encounter on November 2012. The gas station was creepy enough to begin with at 3 a.m., but then the power went out. Led by the light of his cell phone, the attendant was able to get to the generators and got them going, but the backup lighting was dim and only lit up certain areas, like the cash area and the parking lot, while the rest of the isolated establishment was cloaked in black. Out in that darkness, he noticed movement. 3 children on bikes were heading his way. They stood at the door and stared at the attendant. He felt creeped out, but they were just kids, and it was way too late for them to be out. He opened the door and asked if they were okay. The young girl asked to use a phone, but as he handed his cell over to her, he realized her eyes were all black. "No, I need the real one." She pointed at the landline inside. The thought of letting her inside sent chills up his spine. He shouted at all of them to leave as he slammed and locked the door. The children stood there a bit longer, silently staring at him through the glass with their solid black eyes. Then they got back on their bikes and disappeared back into the darkness. The next morning, the attendant was eager to go through surveillance footage. Unfortunately, the power outage cut the cameras off, and they didn't boot back up with the generator. He had nothing to prove the events of the night before took place.
Oh. Do you think they did that on purpose?
Yes, they're smart.
They're smart, but they haven't actually gotten anyone to get them to do what they want. They're smart, but they're not convincing.
Okay.
They need to keep their eyes away. They keep like letting themselves be known.
Because of the eyes. And they want to use landlines.
How old are these children?
Yeah, like, wait a minute, kid.
They want to use your phone so they can play Doodle Jump.
Okay.
Okay, good. And this one is called 10 Minutes.
John Northwood was heading to his car on the 3rd floor of a parking garage when one of the guys from the conference he just attended, Doug, asked him to drive him around the block a few times. He said there were some freaky-looking kids hanging around his car and was hoping to kill some time while waiting for them to wander off. John let Doug in and they started cruising. When they neared his car, John saw the group Doug was talking about and agreed that they were creepy. 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, all goth out. The girl looked at about 15, and the boys around 14 and 10. They were intense, but John described it as if he began itching behind his eyes and really needed to look at them. He started driving. The kids maneuvered around his car, and the youngest one said, "It's scary out there all alone, and we just want to ride home." Apparently, Doug had interacted with the younger one earlier and had agreed to drive him home, but the 2 older ones creeped him out and he changed his mind. John felt as if his heart was going to erupt from his throat as adrenaline raced through him. Doug said he was getting out of the car. As soon as he reached for the handle, it was like the children got older somehow, and he saw their eyes were solid black, no pupil, no iris, nothing, just black.
Ooh.
John threw the car into reverse and squealed the car backwards about 60 feet. The kids began to pursue them. John took the car around the lot's corners going around 30 miles per hour. He felt that they would die if they let those kids get in the car. He sped down 3 floors only to find the oldest boy was already at the bottom of the garage when they came out.
No.
They sped past him out of the garage, and when John glanced at his rear view, the boy was gone. And so was that menacing feeling that had been building inside him since making contact with those kids. They waited 10 minutes before going back, and Doug was able to get in his car and head home. The black-eyed children were nowhere in sight. Upon leaving the garage for the second time that night, the menacing feeling returned. John was behind Doug's car watching helplessly as it misjudged the time it would take to get through the intersection on a yellow light. Doug was struck by a truck and died instantly. John saw the 3 black-eyed children still lurking about 2 blocks away.
No, that one's really scary. I don't like how it said they got older.
Yeah, it was scary.
I don't like that. And this is our final story, and before we get into it, I just want to remind you that we get stories submitted to us through True Scary Stories with Evie on the group page. You can go and connect with Nick and I there.
On Facebook.
If on Facebook, share your scary stories. Some people have been on there posting scary stuff, which we appreciate. We love to see. And we got some creepy pictures on there too, so go check that out. And this is our last story, One Night.
At 6'7" and 260 pounds, this United States Marine was his own looming and intimidating force of nature. But that didn't stop a black-eyed kid from testing him. He was in the barracks of Texas, a Texas base where he lived, and settled in for the night when he heard a sharp knock on the door. Assuming it was his neighbor, the Marine finally made his way to the door. Standing outside was a boy around 17 years old. The Marine asked him what was up, and almost hungrily, the boy asked to be led inside to use the phone. Nothing but sleep and peace on his mind, the Marine said no, and directed him to the service building across the parking lot and closed the door. He knocked again, irritated. The Marine went to the window, intending to yell at him. But just looking at the thin, gaunt kid gave him the creeps. That's when he noticed his eyes. They're black as coal. Once again, the child asked to be let in with a creepy, predatory smile. Still determined to assert his authority, the Marine ignored his fear. I'm going to tell you one more time before I kick your ass to get lost. He turned momentarily to grab his phone, and by the time he turned around, the creature in the form of a child was gone. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen him before, that all of this was familiar. Then it hit him. He had watched his brother have a similar interaction once. 2 years earlier, while still in high school and living in Pennsylvania, he worked the night shift at a gas station. One night, while having a smoke out front with his brother, they saw some guy walking across 4 lanes towards them. His brother asked him if he needed anything, and it was the same request. He wanted to use a phone. The brother said the phone was back by the register and no one was allowed to use it. The brothers went inside, but the strange kid didn't take no for an answer. He stood in front of the shop, just knocking until his brother chased him off with a bat. When he came back, he said the kid was pale and had black eyes. It was the same kid. To some, the fact that the Marine didn't recognize the black-eyed kid immediately implies these beings might be able to scramble people's minds or cloak their memories, at least temporarily, just like they cloak their appearance.
Oh, they think that they just appear to be children, so you trust them.
Yes.
That's interesting.
It's like
so
demons. They say demons do that same thing.
Tricky AF. That is interesting, because yeah, a kid wanting to use the phone, obviously you're gonna let them in.
Yeah.
But then they don't. They go for it, but then they don't go all the way by keeping their heads down.
No.
Okay, well that's interesting, and it was the same one. And they could scramble your brain, yeah, because they have like a little bit of influence.
Yeah, we didn't get to the one where the parents showed up.
Oh, should we do one more?
It's up to you.
What do you guys think? Cheer if you think we should do one more. I can't hear you. Yeah. Okay, I guess they don't want to do one more.
Okay, all right. Well,
we'll give you one more chance. Don't just sit there in your car or your house. I want you to actually cheer on 3.
It. One more.
1, 2, 3.
One more.
I know you didn't do it, and so now we're not going to do it. Okay, we'll do it anyway, because I think some of you actually did it, you're dorks. Okay, and our last bonus segment for all of you uglies who are yelling in your cars. This one is called 2016.
In January 2016, a Vermont woman reported that she had actually let black-eyed children into her home.
They finally got one.
A blizzard was ravaging the world outside her door, so she was very surprised to hear a loud knock on it. Figuring someone was probably crashed their car trying to navigate the weather, she made her way to the door and peeked out the window. There was no car. She described a feeling of dread wash over her for reasons she couldn't understand. The banging continued, so she decided to wake her husband to let him answer instead. 2 small children were on the other side of the door. They were not dressed appropriately for the storm. The woman and her husband let the little boy and girl inside despite the great sense of unease their presence made them feel, and regretted it almost instantly. Their cats hissed and seemed just as bothered by these kids as they were. It didn't seem to matter what she asked them. What happened? Are you lost? Want some cocoa? The answer was always the same. Our parents will be here soon. She made them cocoa anyway, and when she returned with the mugs, that's when she noticed their eyes. They were completely jet black with no whites at all, just giant black pupils. They asked for the bathroom and she directed them to it. Then everything happened all at once. Her husband's nose started bleeding, the power went out, and as she rushed to get a tissue, she was confronted by both children staring at her from the hall. Our parents are here. Just like that, they walked out. She watched as the creepy children get into a black car with two very tall men in suits. They left. Within months of the encounter, her husband was diagnosed with skin cancer. She began suffering from chronic nosebleeds, as her husband initially had, and her health began slowly deteriorating. She is certain it's because of the black-eyed children.
Everyone use your clicky thing to do the clapping thing for Nick. That was really good. I've heard a version of that story, but in the version I heard, the cats died.
What?
Yeah, cats. But she's so sweet. She wanted to bring them cocoa. Yeah. She did anyway.
Other kids.
You can submit your scary stories to be read on True Scary Stories with Edie. Anything that's happened to you. We'd love to hear about it, from aliens to creepy dudes to tax IRS shit. Go check out the Facebook group True Scary Stories with Edie. Follow me on Instagram at Edie Gibson Comedy. Nick at Nick Comic. If you guys want to see what we look like, we're really good looking. And Nick has a podcast called Out of the Insanity.
I know I need to do that one.
Have you not done it since?
No.
Jeez Louise. Well, check it out, because there's probably going to be a new episode very soon. Thank you for listening, Uglies.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.